So now we are at the round table. We are lucky. Maurice has joined us. I know it's late for you, and you got a session after this too. So thank you for coming in. Oh, there he is. He's got his checkered on in the
Right.
lodge. It looks like.
No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the pub.
Oh, in the pub.
Yeah, there's no one else here because of COVID-19.
Oh well, that's good. Uh, all right, cool. I'll have to go find. I'll go grab my jacket here in a little bit. Um, Let's see. I don't know if Valentino has joined us just yet, but he'll probably be on a little later. I think he said he had some conflict. So let's see. So thanks everybody for attending. We did get a few submissions in on our form. When I say a few, I mean 6. So let's just bring those over. Just some potential table topics here. We got a little cloud management, OSD, Windows servicing, working from home, software updates were near the bottom. So we can definitely bring those in. And then we had a few here in kind of the write-in, right? So setting up cloud test environments for personal use. I think that's a good one. Brian, maybe you can bring up, think of that link that you have around that if you're still with us. If not, I'll go dig it up. But well, of course, this is cloud. But I think we should let's talk about test environments in general. I think that would be good. Um, Transitioning workloads to the cloud and CMG benefits. So let me just grab these and I'll just start doing some editing in PowerPoint. And this is really open for anybody. Feel free to either come off mute to talk, add commentary, clarify questions, anything around there that you'd like. So let me just get into this PowerPoint and we'll see where this goes. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, we'll play it by ear a little bit, depending on the conversation where things are. And if John comes back, we might have him bring back into more conversation. We lost him earlier in Mars. He was talking for like a half hour and disconnected from all of this. So,
Okay.
so we missed the meat of his presentation, but he did say it was awesome. So, all right, that doesn't copy well, paste well. Let me just go back. Oh, now it's all going to freeze on me too. All right, well, let's start it here. So I think if you guys want to start off talking about test environments, I think that might be good. I have a couple things in my mind, but let's start there while I try to get some text in here. If you want to talk about maybe the type of test environments you use, how you use them, where you configure them, blah, blah, blah. I think that might be a good starting point.
Maurice, I've been going all day, so go ahead, man.
Yeah. I kind of joined there. Why is Adam talking? Did he not stop? So test environments. Really useful, of course. For me, I'm lucky enough to have it set up with I have all my gear on a laptop. So I'm running a Dell XPS 15 with Windows Server 2019 on it. And the reason I'm doing a server OS on it is to obviously leverage deduplication, because I can throw tons of VMs into it without filling the 1 terabyte disk. Having said that, I got myself a Ubiquiti Dream Machine last week, and I do have a VPN to Azure now at this point. So I think I'm going to throw everything up into Azure and just give myself a little local distribution point. Treat myself like a company, because we're fortunate enough that we can run stuff in Azure. But yeah, that's an expensive option. But just buy something with a lot of RAM. If I was buying something today to run a lab for demo purposes and for testing, something like a NUC, I think, or one of the really small Dell units or something like that, get a lot of RAM into it. I've seen Sandy off our site. She's got something quite special there at the moment. I've seen a picture of her testing endpoint analytics the other day with quite a few machines loaded up, a lot more than I can get. But at least if you've got something like, I think I have a Core i7 with 32 gigs of RAM, and I can run 2 domain controllers, configuration manager, primary site server, app proxy, and a client. So That kind of does me for training for the most part. And the line of work that I find myself in today is actually more focused around Intune. So from that perspective, the lab is online. All they need is a client to test. So doing a lot of work with autopilot, MDM profiles, testing. But yeah, config manager is always good. I'm running technical preview in the lab, and I'm also running a full copy of 2002 in lab. It's my lab, so it's not how I set up a customer lab, but I can do lots of different stuff in it. So what are you running, Adam?
Let's see, my personal one, I've got a Lenovo P1 Gen 1 with 64 gigs of RAM and 4 terabytes of NVMe. I just said I'm done with running a tower that's sweating me out in the closet, and finally said, all right, I'm done. And so I've just splurged and bought this thing, and I love it. I can run huge amounts of stuff on it. The big thing, I guess it's very similar to what you're doing though. It's, I'm running everything in Hyper-V. Recently started having that question of, hey, can I just move all of my Hyper-V stuff up to the cloud? It creates some different challenges, and definitely it's costly. I guess the question that is asked though was what do you do about cloud? The cloud thing, I guess it seems to me that the question is probably something around specifically cloud costs money. How are you testing with stuff in the cloud without breaking the bank would be the kind of the question I would that I'm going to attempt to answer. So the short of it is I've got an MSDN subscription through my employer. And I've also got an MSDN subscription through being an MVP. And so together, I'm able to spin up the tenants and have licenses for the things that I need inside those tenants as part of the MSDN subscriptions alone. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm still trying to juggle because I don't have enough licenses to deal with having a tech preview tenant in the cloud. So I can have a current branch one in the cloud, but I don't have a license for Intune and all the stuff that I need in the tech preview side. So it's complicated. But so I have the MSDN Enterprise license, which I think is about $5,000 US, $5,000 or $7,000 for the first year, and then it's there's a renewal that's some like 25% of that per year or something moving forward, and that gives you $150 Azure credit, which honestly I've been trying to use up that credit and still can't. I mean, I'm running a CMG. I've been shoving all kinds of stuff up there. Haven't, every month I still have at least $50 left on it. So yeah, that would be the first choice, is get an MSDN subscription, make your employer pay for it, especially if you are investigating doing this stuff. Either have your employer pay for a test tenant just flat out, or purchase you an individual MSDN subscription so that you can train and learn and do what you need to do, if you have the luxury of having an employer who will do that. So
I think the two of us are kind of fortunate enough to be able to do that, but it can be very expensive.
Yeah. And I wanted to point it out. I'll bring over the link here real quick. Agree, it can be expensive. I think there's a couple keys with it. One, number one is not leave it running all the time. There are some templates to allow you to quickly deploy both a tech preview as well as a current branch. I've found I've used this a bit. You can go in and deploy to Azure, and an hour, come back, maybe two, come back, and everything's up and running. But the key, is anytime you're deploying anything for test, go in and set some shutdown policies, so that they auto shut down at a certain time of day so that you don't forget about them. I did that on a test subscription the other day, and I think my bill was $300 quickly before I realized, I had something out there. So, keep those things in mind. But from a cloud perspective, I think, you have to accept that you're going to be paying some money somewhere if you're looking for a cloud option for a lab.
Oh, I forgot about this the other day. This came up. So their Office 365 developer subscription is a free subscription that you can sign up for in the Office 365 developer program, and it will give you like a sandbox and licenses and things for Office 365 just without. I think it's just free. So go through that and see. I think you get like 25 licenses as part of that. I'm not sure what that gets you completely, but at least it covers the Office side of things. And then from the MSDN subscription side, something to also consider is there is a dev test subscription option that you can enable. So when you have to assign a subscription to your resources as you spin them up, and the dev test subscription will bill at a cheaper rate. And additionally, there's a thing called Dev Test Labs. I think they may have just moved it to Microsoft Labs, but it did exist at one point. And who was Xander, Roger Xander had a nice blog about it a while back and he was writing some pre-built config manager instances you could spin up on VMs in the Dev Test Lab and very quickly have a tech preview tenant or a current build tenant spun up. The only issue there was the update functionality was broken on those, so you couldn't you couldn't leave it running basically. So it was once and done, spin it up real quick, test something, blow it away kind of deal. So those are things I've been able to use as well.
The other thing, I suppose, for the cloud side of things is if you're talking with a nice partner, you can always ask them to give you a spin up tenant from their demos environment. The demos.microsoft.com, they can spin one up for you there. You can, I think, 180 days now at this stage, you can have one up there.
And that's renewable too.
Yeah, and you can basically do whatever you want. You can have the full Defender ATP, a whole lot, really test everything out. Especially if you're making that kind of choice or proposing to your business that you want to start leveraging some more Microsoft native functionality, maybe retiring some third-party kit or just seeing what the cloud would do. And I think a lot of companies over the past few months have quickly realized that they need to have some kind of cloud adoption strategy. It's kind of all been forced upon us, but it's a nice way of just having an environment without the initial cost that goes with it.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to call out for on-prem as well, Brian turned me to this Windows Office and Deployment Kit. If you have the ability to run on your own system, if you got enough power on your laptop or desktop, this is an easy way to download basically everything and do a quick deployment and have a lab up and running. And it's pretty easy to destroy and start over on as well. So I recommend that. And then, of course, doing it here, you're not having to pay anybody anywhere, until you're connected to some cloud services. The other thing, too, on this demos, Microsoft.com, I've done this myself, right? You with demos, I think there's labs, right, to walk through and things like that. But which is nice. You have the labs, but you don't necessarily have to follow those labs, right? Maybe you just want to get an instance and run some PowerShell scripts in there or something like that. So I think for me at least, it's been a quick and dirty way to get out and get a quick instance and do some stuff. So definitely there's some options there. Curious. Thanks, guys. You guys have thrown a lot in the chat. Feel free to throw anything else in there. I'm curious if anybody else is doing anything from a lab perspective. And I'll move on to the next option here, or the next topic we had, CMC cost, benefits, and setup. I did want to bring over an article to make sure you were all aware of it. Johan has been blogging and updating a post he has out there, real world costs for using cloud management gateway with config manager. Let me throw that in the chat. And he's really basically solicited the world, and many people have given feedback on their experience. So if you scroll down, these are some real world information. Now, I'm sure there's tons of variables, right? Pricing is not always, the same, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at these costs, they're pretty helpful, right? And in his text above, he says, for most companies, you're probably paying $100 a month or something like that. So that's at least a good, starting point, something you can look at to better, understand where you might be from a CMG. You guys have any other thoughts or comments or experience around cloud management and cost, pros, cons?
Yeah. Cost, it's marginal. I mean, I'm looking here at the moment on my screen, which I won't share here, but it's a customer site. They have around about just 1,000 users, so it's small enough. But they're looking at an average of 120 euro. So that's what in dollars, maybe $140 a month. To service those users. They're doing patching, third-party patching, application deployment. Everything through it. So the cost is, as I've seen in some people on social media, said it's peanuts. But in the greater scale of things, it is, because you can patch all of your devices no matter where they are, have that full level of control, deploy applications at a marginal cost. I mean, most of the cost is really actually the cost of running the VM. The data egress costs are tiny. And Johan's done like fantastic work there gathering that for the community. I think a lot of us now at this stage are kind of using that to say, well, look, here are the figures that you should be expecting when it comes to engagements and stuff like that. But yeah, I've been since March basically spinning up CMGs for customers all over, because either their VPN wasn't sufficient, or they just realized the fact that they need to patch no matter where, and they just want the same functionality as what they have at home.
Looks like Adam's going to show us some stuff here.
So this is my lab. So I've got content, but not a lot of egress going on here. And apparently I have $0 for my costs. If I knew how to use this tool, I could tell you. So anyway, it's just, I mean, I had something up here and I screwed it up. This is the CMG spinning by itself, not a lot of egress going on and a little bit of storage going on. So you can see it's projected to cost me $60-something for this month. So if I look at my last 3 invoices, let's see, there we go. Last 3 invoices. Why isn't this working? That was some other weird thing there. So you can see $200 for the last 3 months, and some of that is bandwidth. Most of it is the cloud services piece of it, and that's going to tie in to the compute. So there you go. So my compute cost, the VM itself, is costing me $197 a month. The storage itself is costing me $6, or not $197 a month. Sorry, $197 over 3 months, and the storage has cost me $6. And I have pushed some content up. I don't know how much is here. But the key thing to know is don't push your security updates up to and pay for storage for security updates. You should be pulling your updates from Microsoft if you're using a CMG. For your CMG-based clients, you want to be pulling updates from Microsoft and not pushing them to there. So this should just be your third-party content that you're putting up here.
Yeah.
So super cheap.
Those figures tie in. I mean, the figure I was talking about, looking at kind of cost to date, where they have only €70 for the month. €7 of that was bandwidth. So it's tiny.
Nice. I don't know. I haven't gone to look lately. I'm sure there's several setup guides around. If you guys have any you recommend, feel free to throw them my way, and we'll include them in the notes here for any step-by-steps.
Yeah, I think I have.
Let me see what else we got here. All right. The next one here we had, I'm hitting these fast. John, probably, I don't know, we'll go another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll maybe 7 minutes, and then we'll have you back in. Is that okay?
Yeah, don't worry, I'm multitasking, so just holler when you need me.
All right. Next one here. Transitioning workloads to the cloud. What do you lose with autopilot? And can autopilot effectively replace traditional OSD using, that's a cliffhanger. Did I not get it copied? I don't see it. Let's see. Oh yeah, using MDT or CM. So I don't know if you guys have any insight on this one.
Well, it's not really designed to replace OS deployment. It's a provisioning tool. So when people do that direct comparison, I think there's always going to be an issue. But it has its place in the environment that we have today. I mean, I'm working with a customer at the moment who's inundated with ransomware, and they went from being an on-premise managed infrastructure to having 5,000-6,000 machines in Azure AD through autopilot within 2 days. And in that instance, it was spinning machines up, getting reimaged, and so on. That would have been done with ConfigMan, but they had to do so. They had no real infrastructure to speak of anymore. So yeah, autopilot, the ability to get the device directly from the manufacturer now is something that I think a lot of companies will start adopting, because as we see people working from home, doesn't mean we have to get that machine into the office, get it imaged, send it back out, or can we just say to the likes of Lenovo, HP, Dell, etc., just send the device to their home user? I mean, just get them log in, and machine's already joined. I think there's a lot to be said for it. It's matured a hell of a lot. Win32 apps have got a lot better. We don't see a lot of the initial flaky issues that we had with things going wrong in the autopilot provisioning. It just is an enterprise ready tool, but it doesn't replace OSD. So if you're at an enterprise that still has a lot of offices and dotted around the world, you still have to have a way of doing a bare metal installation. If something goes wrong, is it up to the engineer who comes out with a replacement disk to reload the OS? Okay, maybe, but I think a lot of places will still want their corporate OS. What's your take on that, Adam? Because I mean, you're working for a big multinational.
We still do all OSD. We are in the middle of our modern management project, trying to get security and everyone on board with all the pieces that need to happen. I've got all the pieces in place to do autopilot, both hybrid and Azure AD, but security has some things like Cisco ICE and WebSense and SSL decryption that are causing some havoc, and so we have to get them to come to the table and help us get through some of those things. But it's coming.
That's one good point. I mean, I see that all the time with SSL decryption and IPS and things like that. If they're intercepting traffic that's talking to Endpoint Manager, Office 365, and you just get terrible issues.
Yeah, I mean, they're replacing certs. How do you expect the service to trust the content if you've replaced the cert? Well done, thanks. Yeah, and so Andrew's making a good point as well. So and Andrew, that's been my perspective as well. So what's the difference between the corporate OS and the OS that Microsoft provides? I would say that, okay, so you got to step back one step and say, okay, so manufacturers tend to be pretty shady, and they make money by including bloatware in your machines. Companies pay them to put that in the machines. So if you tell them not to put that on their machine, the whole reason that OSD exists is to wipe out the bloatware, or one of the large reasons is to take the bloatware off. And so the machines will still ship with that. Like my coworker had a conversation with Dell this week, and we have to pay a premium to get clean images from them and then have them registered in autopilot. So that's a consideration. So that is a difference, is that you potentially are going to get a device that the manufacturers still are putting stuff on there that you don't want. However, that's not entirely difficult to manage and deal with after the fact. Even if it came with it, you just, okay, part of your provisioning is to uninstall those things or whatever. But yeah, and the Windows OS is the Windows OS. So all we're talking about is apps. Like, we need to get it on the domain, get it to where it needs to get to, and put your apps on there. And so that's the way we streamlined our OSD process, so that I've made it so my OSD, it's not autopilot, but it's autopilot with Config Manager, where take a machine out of the box, log into it with, create a local account, install the Config Manager client, connect it to the domain, and then let the task sequence take off and put all of the apps and stuff, and then put in the right OU, and we're done. So that's a stupid way to do it, but it works. But we built our OS process that way so that we can just accept any OS that's on the box. And I think you should be headed towards that, whether you get to actually fully use autopilot or not. An OS is just an OS.
Yeah, and something is mentioned about when you talk about bloatware that's put on machines and the security landscape of the device. I can't recall, or I won't mention who the manufacturer was, but there has been issues where the bloatware itself has contained security vulnerabilities. Like key logging, for instance, in certain applications and stuff like that, that have been pre-installed. And by running your OS deployment and having that vanilla image that you created, okay, you can say that you can stand over it a little bit better, and you won't have that element of okay, I don't know what's going to happen to you, or I have to cater for another piece of software, or look after that. So I think companies still choose the option, and like you say, that your task sequence there. I've done it for companies as well, where they want everything done through autopilot, but they have a configuration manager's environment just to image those machines to get them back vanilla and get them ready for autopilot.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a perfect point. Is I think there's a sweet spot there of, we don't trust what's coming on the machine, so we want to control what gets put down. So let's use Config Manager. It's the autopilot for existing devices task sequence. Basically, you spin up that machine, clean it, put your clean OS on it, prep it for autopilot, and then ship it out the door. Then from there, hopefully, unless the hard drive craters, the only thing you ever have to do to that machine is just do a reset from the device and re-autopilot it. And to me, that's where you get your money's worth, is that there's no more re-imaging a device. You re-image it once from the factory to get it to your corporate specs or do whatever you want, and then you could ship it out and never have to touch it again. And to me, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and and the customization, as Michael's just pointed out there in the chat, I would use that approach as well. So package up Win10 customizations as a Win32 app. So if you want to drop down like corporate backgrounds or screensavers or settings, whatever the case may be, wrap it up as a Win32 app. PowerShell install everything you want, and off you go. The world is your oyster.
And I always like to take the approach of, like I'm reading what Steven says, he's getting tickets because the icon has moved just a little bit. And to me, that's just it's culture, right? It's culture. It's what people are used to. And I just look at it and say, yeah, well, that's not IT's problem anymore. Move on to more value add. Like, really talk to your business and say, what value do you really want me to add to the company? Do you want me to worry about spending hours on trying to make a custom start menu and get the background right? Or do you want me to add value so that we can streamline business process and things? And it's a hard conversation. That's a very broad statement, but it's at least worth trying to have that conversation.
It is, but I've seen that as well. It's just, I suppose, sometimes it depends on the management structure, and it's like, okay, we must make sure all of our employees have that screen exactly the way that they've had it for the past 10 years, because anything that changes on it will blow their minds. And that, unfortunately, is not progress. So, what happens if they go home and their satellite TV provider has changed the menu?
They call their
Did they
son.
did they throw out the box, or did they learn how to use it?
Yeah, there's some fine lines there. I've worked with companies, kind of both, right, where they were very, very rigid, but at some point, right, especially like on Windows 10, hopefully they're probably using it at home as well, right? A lot. Well, that's naive, right? I work in a tech company, so most people probably have a device. So maybe that's not the way, but you would like to think that a lot of people, your phone, right? You buy a new phone, you have to adapt. There has to, and most people probably have a phone. So yeah, there's a push and pull, but I think it would probably be good to have just another an hour just to talk about this, right? As far as because I agree. The only thing I put on the slide, right, is both have their place because really I think it depends on the customer. But if you're ever going to try to do a feature comparison and check boxes, autopilot's not going to, not going to meet what you would expect from a config man. It's kind of like Intune and config man. It's all about how you use the tool, how you plan to leverage it, and if you're willing to, potentially change your ways, right? And if you're able to from a company perspective.
Yeah, and then the cliche phrase is that it goes around as a better together.
Yeah.
They are better together.
Yeah.
So take them for what they are and use them together for every scenario.
Yeah, and that's why you've
Don't
seen,
fit them.
yeah, and you've seen autopilot now integrated with task sequences, right? And those things.
Yeah.
So, I think that's what Microsoft finds, right? They probably push a little hard, and then they find in the middle where things are the happy place. So, yeah, cool.
One last thing that I'll add to that is so there are some alternatives to doing OSD for provisioning for autopilot, and not trying to. So Intune.training, the YouTube channel we have, Ben Reeder recently did a video on his Intune. Oh shoot, it's Intune HV tools or. That's not it. His sorry, there's a USB provisioning video that we did where he wrote a module to let you take a vanilla image, shove it on a USB stick, boot your device into PE, and it will throw the image on there and then drop your autopilot JSON file in, and then it's ready to go. And so that's a shortcut way around of not having to do MDT or config manager. If you just want to put the OS on and just wipe and reset to vanilla, it's a nice, quick way to do it. I'll find the link and post it.
You're still getting into the requirements around driver management and things like that, though, when you go that route, though, right? I mean, throwing vanilla, I guess as long as you can get a healthy OS up and running, then you could potentially apply the drivers after that. So, yeah, it's all about that process. But yeah, it would be good to have a session maybe in the future where somebody talks about that journey of, we went to autopilot, we did config man, here's why, good, bad, ugly, here's what we sacrificed, right? Or here's how we changed things to work. So, okay, cool.